Everybody, this is the news that we are waking up to for Monday, April 21st, 2025, day 1153 of Vladimir Putin's war of aggression against the people of Ukraine. I'm Peter Alexievich, and last night, literally, I almost did a video because I was out on the porch and the air raid sirens went off. It was about 11:20. So 40 minutes before the so-called Easter ceasefire was to end, we had drones in our skies and air defense was active. And that's the way that this whole weekend was. There was no ceasefire. It was a media stunt, as the Czech foreign minister quite rightly called it, a media stunt to give Putin some traction in Western media, looking like the good guy, calling a ceasefire, when really what it exposed is the sheer hypocrisy of the Kremlin. At any time, the dictator for life could have told his forces to withdraw or stop this war. Never happened, and it's not going to happen. Not as far as I can see, despite the President of the United States saying this week that he expects something in the next week. I don't know what world these people are living on. Anyway, last night, air defense did its usual bang-up job, 90% interception rate, just about, on the 96 or 97 drones that came in. Virtually all were eliminated. Now, the ceasefire, the so-called ceasefire, did slow things down along some of the front. In the Donetsk region, we saw both Ukrainian and Russian troops able to move out into the field and reclaim their dead. And that's a real thing that happened this weekend for both sides, right? But that is about the extent of it, and it was very limited areas of the front where this was possible. Let me show you the timeline here. Other good news, just some other good news, right? 277 Ukrainians returned home, many of them from Melitopol, who have been in custody for nearly 3 years. So tremendous Easter homecoming for many, many Ukrainian families. Trump, for his part, tweeted this out. Hopefully, Russia and Ukraine will make a deal this week. Both will then start to do big business with They'll do big business with the United States of America, which is thriving. It's not being pushed over a cliff by a suicidal Donald Duck, right? Who's packed the whole economy in with fertilizer and fuel oil. No, it's thriving, and we'll all make a fortune together. This fucking guy. The only thing, this guy is not interested in democracy. He's not interested in our shared values. He is not interested in fair play. He's interested in his own bottom line, and he is a completely amoral political creature who wields power the way that dictators do, exclusively and without a concern for any retribution. It's a tough one, boy. So, okay, here's the timeline. I think that this is hysterical. And it goes to the point of what it is to deal with the Russians. We got to stop kidding ourselves about these people and who they are and how they operate. To believe anything that comes out of the Kremlin is to open yourself up to be a victim of the con. It's a con. The so-called Easter ceasefire was a con intended to make Putin look good both to his domestic audience, who sees him as the merciful czar, and to his international audience, who now can say, oh, look, Ukraine, look what they did for you. Why aren't you more grateful? So what did they really do? What did this weekend really look like? So the first thing is the ceasefire was supposed to start at 6 o'clock on Saturday, right? At 5:15, the skies over Kyiv were loaded with drones. So right at the very last minute, right before his so-called ceasefire was to be put in place, we get loud explosions in Kyiv because of drones lobbed at us by the Russian Federation. Zelensky called Russia's attack with combat drones after 5 p.m. on Saturday a clear demonstration of Putin's true attitude toward Easter and human life. And indeed it was. At 5:15 p.m., Russian combat drones were detected in our skies. Ukrainian air defense and aviation have already begun working to protect us. Shaheds in our skies, that's Putin's real attitude toward Easter and toward human life. And indeed it is, right? Now, this was not all. It's not as though he just got in a few last-minute punches before his unilateral decree, which again just goes to show you that there's only one person behind this war. One person who could stop it at any time. With one word from the Kremlin, the whole thing could stop. But no, he can't stop. If he stops, it's the end of him. The rats will eat him alive. So he can't stop. Not without real victory. Now this was, so between 6 p.m. when the ceasefire was supposed to start and midnight, right, in that 6 hours, there have already been 59 Russian attacks and 5 assault operations along with various frontline directions. Zelensky reported on the situation at the front as of 6 a.m. He also noted that between 6 p.m. and midnight, there were 387 attacks, 19 assaults, and 290 uses of drones. The invaders must die, warn Ukraine gave these statistics. Ukraine proposes a mutual halt of all long-range drone and missile strikes on civilian infrastructure for a minimum of 30 days with the possibility of an extension. This was Zelensky's offer, right? Okay, Russia, you put this ceasefire on the table. Let's not go for 30 hours. Let's go for 30 days. What do you say? Since the beginning of the day, the Russian army has violated Putin's ceasefire over 2,000 times, 67 assaults, 1,355 Russian attacks all along the border. I screenshotted it, and I forgot to get it into the deck, but I have a screenshot that I'll do a video with of the Russian RIA channel, right, which is a Russian media outlet. Literally back-to-back newsflash announcements. Russia declares ceasefire. Russia is moving forward in all 11 directions. I mean, it's a riot. There's no sense of irony with these people. Putin, of course, refused to extend the Easter truce, said Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov. So the whole thing, again, to quote the Czech foreign minister, was a media stunt. A media stunt. That's all it was. It may also have been intended to catch the Ukrainians unawares in Belgorod. So I cannot stress to everybody how important I believe it is to understand at a tactical and strategic level what's happening here on the border with Sumy. Now remember, there was this big Kursk incursion, right, 1,000 square kilometers, that has now shrunk to a tiny foothold. There were an estimated 78,000 Russian troops up here to cover that enormous new front line that opened, right? We believe that there are 62,000 left, including somewhere between 9 and 12,000 North Koreans. About 62,000 troops left. Now, when that front collapsed, what happened? All 62,000 of the remaining troops are pressed up against that new short line. Waves and waves of Russians are ready to push through that last toehold in Kursk and into Sumy region, opening a new front inside of Ukraine. This cannot be allowed. It'll mean another destroyed Ukrainian city. Not that Sumy hasn't taken its licks, boy. but it will mean more destroyed Ukrainian cities. It will mean more Ukrainian civilians displaced. It will mean, right, it's a bad scene. So what has Ukraine done? Well, this is Kursk up here. Here's Belgorod down here. The Ukrainians have gone across the border and taken a toehold in Belgorod Oblast as well. So what are the Russians having to do? They're taking from those troops the reserves from the Sumy offensive, and they're moving them down to Belgorod to dislodge the Ukrainians inside of Russia. This is so important. It's exactly what the Kursk front did, right? It drew Russian reserves from the Donbass up into Kursk. Now the Ukrainians need to pull those reserves from the Sumy offensive, which has yet to begin in earnest, and pull them down away to Belgorod. Now it's 62,000 troops. It's a lot of troops. However, the Ukrainians have evolved clearly a new capability with the F-16s. The F-16s are now being used in close combat support missions to support infantry on the ground. This is, as I understand it, this is a complex tactical maneuver warfare component that the Ukrainian military has been able to evolve over the last 10 months of using the F-16s, and they are hammering the Russians. We have reports of the Ukrainian F-16s interdicting troops and supplies on their way to Belgorod before they even reach the contact line. Now, the difficulty with this is, okay, fine, the Ukrainians take out a busload of 60, say, Russian troops. There are thousands of Russian troops moving into the area. This capability to destroy at a distance, this new capability of close ground support using the F-16s, the word game changer is so often overused, and I don't want to use it here. But it does, if the Ukrainians are getting air superiority like this in Ukraine against the Russian aerospace forces, that's a devastating new capability that is only going to further erode Russian morale and will in the face of the righteous wrath of the Ukrainians pouring down on them from the skies, which is what is happening right now. We have reports in the last 2 weeks of 19 significant targets that have been hit by the F-16s. MiGs are still very active, dropping the French hammers. Apparently, the MiGs are deploying the French hammers. The F-16s are deploying the JDAMs mostly, it seems, and the the GBU-39s, something like that. Those precision strikes are making a difference. They have stopped, as far as we can tell, the Sumy incursion is slowed because of it. It's not to say that they're not pushing over the border into Sumy and trying to backdoor the Ukrainians in Kursk, cutting off the supply road. That appears to be what they're doing there. But the Russians are taking heavy losses to try to get them out of Belgorod. And that, I'm certain, is the plan. Big thanks to Reporting from Ukraine News on YouTube, who under a internet common use license. I stole this graphic from them, and so I want to plug them. They're the best source of strategic news about Ukraine on the internet, in my opinion. Now, not only did the Czech foreign minister spit some truth this week, the Czech PM, Peter Fiala, said, after roughly 60 years, our dependence on Russia has ended. For the first time in history, the Czech Republic is completely supplied by non-Russian oil and fully supplied through Western routes, cutting off the last Russian oil supplies to the Czech Republic. and declaring energy independence from Russia, even as Moldova did earlier last year. This is a big deal. Russia depends on those oil revenues, baby. And the price of oil is crashing and the revenue sources are drying up. Now, Krasnodar is under lockdown right now. So Krasnodar, the city in Krasnodar Krai, just across the Black Sea from Ukraine, saw 100 prisoners who had been arrested and detained for attempting to desert the Russian army stage a revolt and an attempted prison break. So they're being detained in Krasnodar before they get shipped to the Gulag or sent back to the army for frontline assaults, right? From which they will not be expected to return. And rather than face that, these guys broke out. They caused some trouble with the guards, I guess. It's unclear whether or not some of them got away. We've had mixed reports that maybe 7 of the 100 did actually escape the facility. Then maybe reports that 4 of them had been recaptured and that 3 were still on the run. Something like that might be the truth. But the fact that you got 100 prisoners on their way to the Gulag for deserting is not a good sign for Russian morale, I wouldn't think. And the fact that they are desperate enough not to be sent back, that they would risk their lives trying to escape, is further evidence of the current state of the Russian army, I would argue. Now, so this is interesting. So I'm just going to simplify this chart. This chart is 100% of all losses of Russian armored vehicles. Okay, so not a count of them, not how many, just what percentage were new and what percentage were Soviet stockpiles. The green is new. The blue is old. Look at the lately, right? We had a bump a couple months ago, but now look, only 15% of the vehicles being destroyed on the field are of new manufacturer. 85% are old Soviet stockpiles. 85%. And the Ukrainians have destroyed now something like 22,000 armored personnel carriers. The money that the U.S. has spent in Ukraine to completely obliterate the Soviet weapons stockpiles of the Russian Federation is the best money the West has ever spent. And now we're holding Ukraine responsible for repayments. It's enough to make a cat laugh. Now dig it. It's hard to see it, right? But see this log right here? Right? It's just a log, right? It's just a log on the ground. If you were a cold Russian soldier out trying to keep yourself warm, right? It's the kind of thing you would pick up and bring back to put on the fire, right? No, it's a landmine. And when you pick it up, you go boom. The Ukrainians are now disguising landmines as essential things that the Russians need to keep warm, to cook food, things like that. They're disguising them like this. Now, I have a lot of problems with it in terms of post-war cleanup. I'm not saying I don't, but it is an interesting kind of illusion and a way to trick a tired, hungry enemy that's just trying to survive, which I think is a good summation of where the Russian army is at. Oh, I don't have a slide on it, but right before I started to video this, I heard, I'll find out just how true it is, but I've heard that the Ukrainians have taken a large group of Russians into a pocket around Pokrovsk, probably the Kotlin, the town of Kotlin, which they've been working on surrounding for several weeks now. So I'll take a look at that after and do a video. To all the Catholics out there, please accept my most sincere apology or most sincere condolences on the occasion of the passing of Pope Francis. But I can't help but love these times because this is the only time when there isn't somebody on the planet who's claiming to be infallible. Enjoy these next few weeks, folks. We're infallibility free for the time being. Fox, demonstrating itself to be a Putin puppet, broadcast live Easter services from Kyiv, Russia. For nearly 20 minutes, this mistake was on the screen. Unbelievable. I would put it up as a funny if it weren't so insulting. Here's a funny. Corporate needs you to find the differences between this picture and this picture. They're the same picture. Yes, they are. Yes, they are, Pam. Thank you so much. All right, kids. A reminder, please, if you subscribe to the Patreon using Apple Pay takes 30% of your contribution and keeps it for themselves. Secondly, they make me wait 75 days for the remaining 66%. So if you can change your view from Apple Pay to something else, that would be great. Big thanks to Blue Star, who upgraded their Patreon membership. I can't thank you enough. Things are tough. There's no two ways about it. If you don't follow me on Blue Sky, X, whichever your choice is, Threads, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, everywhere else, I am Peter Alexievich. And then on TikTok and PayPal, I'm Peter Alexievich. We got Eli and Little Red sponsoring tonight's live. And we have no other sponsors for the rest of the week. If anybody's sponsoring a live, PayPal is in the description. Thanks, guys. And I will see everybody on tonight's live. Take care.